Good Thursday afternoon and welcome into Grant and Danny. We'll be here for a little under an hour today. We've been waiting for the Nats game, post-game festivities to come to an end, but we are ready to go for this hour or so of our show that will come your way today. And we'll be back to round out the week with 4.5 hours starting at 2 o'clock tomorrow. We've got a monster show shaping up for tomorrow. We'll give you some of the deets in just a bit. Danny, it is a gorgeous day in the nation's capital. I know you were out and about playing 4+ hours of pickleball today.
Big pickleball day. Shout outs are out there at Walter Reed Community Center this afternoon. Hitting it around.
Mr. Pickleball,
Mr. Pickle.
How'd you swing it today?
I was good till I got really tired, which will happen after 4+ hours. So, like, the last hour wasn't a great hour. I paused to do our conference call that we had, which was actually a nice break. I was like, I'd love to play, but I need a second. I got to do this work thing. Thank God that work thing came along because I was huffing and puffing and sore and not feeling great. But, yeah, managed a couple of other games. It was a blast.
Pause just in time to see the boss kick some butt and take some names.
Yeah, seriously.
Pushing some people around a little bit today.
He wasn't pointing at me, which was nice. I was worried. I was like, did I do something? Because I could be next.
Darius and I turned off our camera a couple times. We're like, oh, this is getting intense.
Yeah.
It was a good time for everybody involved.
It was neat.
Maybe not everybody.
Several people.
Several of us had a good time.
Other people.
But I actually watched some people play pickleball today.
Go on.
You know about this?
I didn't know about that.
Of course you didn't. I didn't tell you. I don't know why I asked you if you did. I watched. They were very old, these people. Very old.
Okay.
I'm going to assume.
Now, is that like how my kids say very old and they mean my age?
No. Like my parents always think this is funny where I'm like, oh, he was super old. And then they're like, how old? And I'm like, probably 70.
51.
My dad's 72. And he's like, come on, dude.
Come on,
really?
Man.
But when you're a little kid, 70's old. Maybe I got to update my file. I think these old heads playing pickleball today were probably mid-80s is what I'm going to say. There weren't a whole lot of volleys. Do we call them volleys in pickleball or no?
Like rallies? Like multiple hit points?
Rally might be a word.
Yeah.
There were not many rallies.
Not many longer points.
Let's serve if it comes right to the person. And I was like, I might be able to get out there and show them a thing or two. But I had the kids. I talk about daddy daycare.
Yeah.
Me and 3 kids today making the round.
Head on a swivel, bro. I love it.
My wife had some other engagements this afternoon. So I took Reagan to, it's called ballerina gymnastics.
You ever think?
I don't really know what it is.
Do you think 25, 26-year-old Grant Paulson was like, you know what I'm going to do one day?
Exactly. I'm going to hold a baby.
Yep.
Because she'll cry every time she's not being held.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to watch my daughter do ballerina gymnastics. And after every move she does, she runs over to the glass to make sure I'm looking.
Did you look?
If I'm not, it's a problem. We're doing thumbs up. I return her thumbs up with a thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
But then my son is like breaking things and trying to tackle people and flipping over benches and whatever else he can do to get some attention.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite an ordeal. But we got through it today over at the South Run Rec Center. We made a play or two.
And a baby.
So yes, it was a very good time, had by all. And then we hit the playground, and that is where I saw people playing the pickle. I thought I could. I'm looking for my guy, Danny Rouillet. I was like, it's an afternoon in America. Surely he's on a pickleball court.
He was, just not that one. So it's interesting at Walter Reed, the place where I've been playing a bunch. There's like 2 sections.
Are there multiple Walter Reeds?
Yeah.
Is Walter Reed not the very important
yes.
hospital for troops that's over in Bethesda?
Yeah, this is not that. This is a little community center where there's some like courts. This is in Arlington. Okay.
But Arlington has a Walter Reed as well. Are they attached?
I think they're unrelated. I could be wrong about that. I think it's just a local community center.
I'm over asking, but I've always wondered this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like every now and then something will pop up with it like Walter Reed, and I know it as the place off Wisconsin Avenue over in Bethesda.
Mm-hmm.
This is just, it's like a person's name that is used in multiple places.
Yeah. So like there's probably several Washington streets around. You know what I mean? Yes. Like they have multiple things. So it's like the way it's kind of developed lately is there's a section of 3 courts where the games are fine. Kind of like maybe it sounds like what you were witnessing. And then there's the more intense side. It's where some pretty good players are playing. And I'm barely allowed to be there. Like I could say I'm not just being humble or beating myself up. I'm the worst player there in that group, but guys are kind enough to let me kind of hang in there, and because it helps me get better, which is nice of them. But it just doesn't feel that good to be always the worst and always losing a lot because I stink.
It's just been beautiful. The Nats are coming home tomorrow to take on the Blue Jays. So I haven't looked at the weather, but I'm assuming it's going to be 46 degrees.
Could turn miserable somehow. Yeah.
Got to be freezing.
Weirdly overcast or breeze it with water in it.
I'm sure it'll rain for the next 5 days because we can't possibly have nice, beautiful baseball weather. When the Nats are home, that would be against the rules over at Nationals Park. So we'll have to update the weather with show meteorologist Ryan Clary going into the weekend tomorrow, perhaps. But here's the news we should start with. We don't have a lot of time today. We'll be back at it tomorrow, but RFK Stadium is officially being demolished. This is not surprising. And I guess because of that, it's not that newsy, but it is notable because this is the announcement that it is happening. Up until now, we didn't know how far off or when or if it was going to be demolished in the near future. And it's now a thing. It is time. RFK Stadium is set for demolition. The National Park Service gave the green light for the demolition in an announcement on Thursday, saying that after evaluating the demolition's impact on the natural, cultural, and human environment, federal officials determined it would be okay to proceed. So this has been in the works. This was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Adults had to get together and go, if we do this, are there any ramifications that are going to impact the environment or the people around there? And someone does all the due diligence and comes back and says, nope, this is going to be fine. And they go, okay, let's get it done. So in an April 29th report that we found out about today, demolition is set. They're going to demolish a stadium with more positive memories and great moments than any other building in this city from a sports standpoint. Obviously, it's been a long time. More recently, if you're my age, you know RFK Stadium as the dumpy place where the Nats played for a little while. That was terrible for baseball. You might know RFK Stadium if you're my age for DC United games over the years where you'd walk underneath of those little overpass tunnels coming out and everyone would chant, DC United. That was kind of the gist. But there are people who remember being there for football games that have very different memories.
Yeah, very fun ones. So it needs to happen. It's obvious. But you're right. There'll be a couple moments of, nostalgia, I'm sure, associated with it. And I'm sure we'll be able to talk about that as the time comes.
More than moments, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of people, like bonds with dad, with grandpa, with family, that stadium means something.
It means an awful lot. Yeah. But it needs to happen. It's needed to go for some time. And so here's the reason why it's significant to me that we find out about this news. If the last several years, and I'm going back maybe near a decade now, maybe more, honestly. So when Bruce comes aboard and he was supposed to be the guy that was going to grease all the wheels with the politicians and get all this stuff done with RFK or build the new stadium or get the stuff done. And he was going to be the guy that glad-handed everyone and made this happen. And he did a great job, I'm sure. But take nothing for granted. When somebody tells you this is just a formality, no, it isn't. Not with these folks. And I mean everybody that's involved in politics, that when it touches our sports stuff, there's no easy. There's nothing for granted. There's nothing simple. There's nothing that's, this is just a one thing. Sometimes it goes quick. Sometimes it's easy. It usually isn't. So this is yet another little a check mark that had to be put in some box somewhere. This is, underlined instead of lining through. This is reasonable. This is what's supposed to happen. But with the bureaucracy and everybody getting their hand out, there's always something.
Well, it is not a formality in the sense, I would say, that there's no such thing as formalities, right? I mean, in other words, if two things can be true, then yes, it's a formality. And also, there's no such thing as a formality, right? Like, people took this as some major development that they're going to be building a stadium there. And I don't think it should be viewed that way. This is going to sound similar, but it actually doesn't mean the same thing at all. This is a necessary step for a stadium eventually being built there.
This is it, yes.
This does not mean that a stadium is likely getting built there. It's possible, but no matter what they were going to do or will end up doing, or DC decides to do with those 190 acres on the RFK site, the property over there, this had to happen, and they couldn't even get to this point. So make no mistake about it. We are breaking new ground on the RFK site future. Whether it's a stadium or not, some of the voting that's been done in the last few months, and now this development, like, we are where no one's gone over the last several decades.
Yeah, this is exactly where everybody thought we'd be a long time ago. right? With different political circumstances and different Congresses, different senators, and everything else. And everybody sort of thought this would be done. It's not going to be done in time for Washington to be able to move stadiums before their lease is up at FedEx in 2027. But we're here now. I think you said it very well. It doesn't mean a stadium's going there, but you couldn't have a stadium there unless this was done.
Yeah.
Right. So this is now you're clearing the landing spot to be able to land the plane. Doesn't mean the plane's landing here. Could land somewhere else.
It's an option.
It's probably not going to land in Virginia, but it could land anywhere. It could land in so many different places, but probably not Virginia. Not after what you just did. So it's going to be in D.C. or Maryland or whatever, but you couldn't have it at RFK until this gets done. And so we kind of didn't see this coming. I don't know about you. I don't know how many well-placed sources you have at the National Park Service, or if we're like, we got an insider that's going to give us a little press release a day before, but this kind of came out of nowhere. It's something that we just, got on our radar, but it's important, again, to clear the deck to make sure that it could happen.
There is an elephant in the room here on this quote. We're excited that the process is moving forward and taking us one step closer to the district putting the land at RFK to a higher and better use that benefits our residents and communities. Nina Albert, Muriel Bowser's deputy mayor for planning and economic development, said in a statement.
Very carefully chosen words there, by the way. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
We want a higher and a better use. Not going to be that hard than a dilapidated,
an empty building,
moldy, stadium. Have you seen any of the videos that have been done on what it looks like over there now?
Oh, yeah.
It's actually really sad. The inside of that stadium, and I joke, I only remember going there one time. I don't remember walking in. I don't really remember the stadium itself. I was 7-ish, maybe 8. Boomer Esiason threw for 500 yards in the game. The Cardinals beat the then Redskins in overtime. It was in the mid-90s. It was the only time we ever got tickets, and my dad took me. It was the first football game I'd ever been to. Next one I went to was in 1999 when I was about 10 years old at FedEx Field. But other than that one game, it was DC United and Nationals baseball for me. That's when I've been there. That's what RFK Stadium was for my age, as weird as it sounds. But even for me, to see the videos, like people broke in and did these things that were on YouTube for a while, and they went through the offices. It's just a building that is quite literally rotting.
Yep.
And grass is growing. There were remember there was a fire over there that they go put out.
Just an eyesore.
People were living in there at one point. Like it is just, nothing was done with it. And we can fight over what to do with it as long as you want to. Something should be done. Maybe we could just have something. You drive past it on your way to FedEx Field and you look over. It should be a source of pride that this is where the NFC Championship game was that time. This is where the Redskins came to power. And in fact, you just look over and you're like, yeah. That's kind of gross looking.
It's awful. As I said, it needed to happen. It's going to be, bittersweet when it does finally, the wrecking ball comes or they load up with dynamite or whatever the hell they do. And I'll think, I never got to go to that many games as a kid. That's like one of the weird things is I couldn't get tickets. Our family couldn't get tickets. Whenever the Tremonti family was kind enough to say, all right, Dan, and you could take your kid, we'll do that. So I went over a handful of times, but it wasn't many.
Did the Tremontis hook you guys?
They did.
Nice.
They did. They run the Italian store, by the way. I would go. You can just go there and get delicious food. That's what they do at the Italian store.
Where
they make delicious
food. Did they have
food.
Sillies?
They had. So we got to go to way more Caps games with them and through them, which were a few rows back, right behind the goaltender. That's where I would see all these goals go into the playoffs, and it would break my heart. That's why I stopped believing that good things could happen. But they had. It was like upper part of the lower bowl, around like the 25-yard line, as I recall.
So this is going to sound amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, it was super cool. But the seats were the worst you could ever have imagined. I don't know how this happened. I might call my dad tonight and ask him how this worked out. I'm pretty sure my uncle gave us the tickets. Mm-hmm. This is the only time I ever went to RFK Stadium. We could look up the date. Maybe Ryan get on this for me. Cardinals, Redskins. I'm going to guess it was around 96. You could type in, this is how you'll find it. Boomer Esiason threw for like a record 500 some yards. Yeah. And I think Scott Blanton was the kicker or somebody, and they missed a couple field goals, and Arizona won in overtime. But it was my first game. This is what I remember. You know those little metal bleachers like that you would sit on at your kid's rec soccer game that are like 6 rows up, probably 8 to 9 feet off the ground at their apex, if that. We sat on that on the sideline. which again sounds really cool, except you couldn't get like near the team or the field or the players or whatever. But all you could really see because of where we were positioned, like the cheerleaders were in front of us, which I was just a little kid, so that wasn't as cool as it would have been later in life, maybe. They were blocking the way and whatever else. But I saw Brian Mitchell on the goal line catching kickoffs a bunch, like basically 20 feet out in front of me. I don't know how we got the seats, or it was something to do with the military. It was like a giveaway. My uncle was a lieutenant colonel in the Marines,
Mhm.
and they like hooked him for some military thing. We sat around a bunch of military people, and it was like me and my dad. And I remember walking down like, this is so weird.
Like, it says field. Am I calling a play?
Right, exactly.
Am
It's like Sean McVay.
I on the staff?
Yeah. And the only other thing I remember about that day was this guy's name probably wasn't Bob Dole, like the president. So I'm thinking maybe it was like Bob Dahl. But there was this giant offensive lineman who I just remember he walked right in front of me, like fully padded up, number 75. And it was the biggest human being I'd ever seen. And I was like, oh my God, these guys are monsters.
They're
I
ridiculous.
don't know that he was particularly good, or I don't know anything about him other than he walked in front of me. I could have reached out and touched him on my little bleacher area. He's probably going to the bathroom or who knows, going and getting some treatment or something. Like went down the tunnel. And I was like, that's the biggest person I've ever seen in my life. And I'll always remember that too.
Right.
Just weird things.
It's funny the little flashes you remember. I remember going to an Orioles game when I was probably about the same age you were. Maybe it was like 8 or 9 at that point when they played Oakland, and just got down pretty low when you can go watch batting practice, watching like McGuire and Canseco and Dave Henderson, the center fielder, who was enormous, but he looked like a child next to those other two mountains of people. And you're just like, no one will ever beat this team. Now, that's not necessarily how baseball works, but I was like, these are mountains of people.
Ryan, who's our research department for the moment, what did you find? What was the date of my big trip to RFK Stadium?
It was November 10th, 1996. The Skins were 10.5-point favorites, and they lost that game 37-34.
It was a nice indoctrination, I will say. Yeah, they were supposed to win. In fact, they were 7-2 going into that game, and the Cardinals were terrible, and they lost to Arizona. But yeah, man, it was my guy B. Mitch returning kicks. He carried the ball a few times. He was my favorite player. And Michael Westbrook caught a touchdown, I remember. It's about all I got for you in that game. But Puma Esiason threw. Which of his 520 some yards was your favorite? What a
There
day.
were so many backbreaking throws in that game.
RFK Stadium.
Was it Jerry Drake, the big dude that you saw?
No, his name's Bob. It was the same name as the guy that tried to be the president, like Bob
Dole.
I think it was spelled with an A, like Bob Dahl.
I don't see him on the roster, dude.
Really?
I don't want to I don't want to accuse you of like making it up.
No, I'm dead serious. I mean, it happened for sure. Because this is something that I've thought about 8,000 times since. Bob Dahl. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to Google it and look it up. But I don't know. You think people will be in their feels?
Yeah,
I think so too.
Without a doubt.
Are we going to be able to do some shtick or no? Like, should we play Miley Cyrus Wrecking Ball with like video of it falling, or is that too much?
I think it's fine. But
Okay.
people are going to feel some things, and I think that's fine.
What song should be played to the video with it coming down? It's definitely Wrecking Ball, right?
We could do Wrecking Ball. You could do You Wreck Me Baby by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Not bad. It's got to be a primary demolition song.
Song about demolition. I don't have it.
Walls caving
The
in.
theme to Demolition Man? Nah, it doesn't help you.
Maybe.
Mm.
So the question for you guys, MGM National Harbor listener lines, when you hear today, and this was a long time coming, this is beyond necessary, whether the stadium's going to be there or something else will, really doesn't matter. What was your reaction? Like, does any part of you, do you have any kind of sadness or emotion for that? Are you going, let's move it along, long overdue. This is a baby step toward the end game, which is that you want the stadium back in D.C. And we can open up the phones. 800-636-1067. Grant and Danny with you on the Fan.
I came in like a wrecking ball.
This song,
I never hit so hard
sneaky.
in love.
Top 5
All
best
I
songs
wanted was to break you off.
to belt out
All you ever did was
top of your lungs.
break me.
I love it. I was like cleaning my kitchen before Caps Rangers game 1 a couple weekends ago.
Okay.
And I was just putting together a list of bangers that I wanted to just scream out, house to myself, cleaning.
This made the cut?
This made the cut.
Little Miley Cyrus on your playlist, bro?
Wrecking ball.
How
dude.
about it?
Really, really good. We all want our teams to make the best decisions for their future. Do not forget to do the same for yourself. The exclusive sponsor of our show, the law firm of Condori and Murad, will help. They'll guide you and your family, draft your will, set up your revocable trust, create a medical power of attorney. Schedule a free consultation with one of their estate planning attorneys at kmlawyers.com now. Be sure to tell them that we sent you. You'll get a discount. kmlawyers.com. When you hear RFKs being demolished, Danny, do you get in your feels, or is this completely exciting because of what lies ahead potentially?
More the former than the latter. I mean, it's the right thing to do. I'm very aware of it. Here's my analogy. I've driven by the first house that I remember living in. So the house I spent most of the time growing up in, that doesn't exist anymore. That got knocked down as it should have. But the house I lived in from like age 0 to 7
should have.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrible and flooded all the time, and it was great. It was good that it's done. But my original house, like from 0 to 7, I have nothing but fond memories of me being super tiny, like climbing the mulberry tree in the backyard, and accidentally putting my parents' car in drive and rolling down the hill 50 feet. Different things. I still love driving by and seeing it, right? I still do. It's still like a neat thing to me. And my parents, my family doesn't care. My kids don't care. Wife doesn't care or whatever. But I still like it. That's what this is to RFK for me. I'm in a way better house now. You know what I mean? Like I'm a grown up. I got my own thing. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But I still have that nostalgia for that place because of how great it was when I was little. The Daryl Johnston, the We Want Dallas games. I mean, all the incredible moments and memories that happened there. It's so great just to think about.
What's your Moose Johnston reflection?
I don't know why I said his name. It's Dexter Manley in the intercept and the knocked the pass down. Why am I blanking on his name? It's not Terrell Johnson. That's the fullback from Dallas.
Well, one
of my heroes.
You're talking about RFK Stadium, and you drop a Daryl Johnston, and I'm like, I got to be honest, Moose Johnston.
I don't remember that play he made at RFK that time.
The United Football League, who played for the Cowboys all those years, is not the first guy I would name check when I'm talking about RFK.
No, because that's the wrong name. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. It's not Daryl Johnston at all.
I don't even know what you're trying to reference.
No, the Danny White drops back screen pass. It's tipped, catches the ball, runs into the end zone to win the NFC title game to go to the Super Bowl. In the We Want Dallas game. And I'm blanking on the guy's name.
Johnston.
Yeah, and Daryl Moose Johnson is the guy that did it, apparently.
But the point is, you feel good.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do.
We're going in the right direction. I don't have the memories of everybody else. I certainly know the importance of it and the plays and the significance over the years. Daryl Grant's play that you're referencing.
Good Lord.
Among them. But I don't know, man. I bring on whatever's next. And I think what's next could be a stadium right there in that location.
Mm-hmm.
And Moose Johnston blocked some people there, too, at one point.
Conflating my Daryls there.
Let's go to James in Manassas. Hello, James. How are you?
Hey, guys. Great show. I love the show. Listen all the time.
Thanks,
I really
buddy.
appreciate it. Yeah, for me, this is like really hits me in the feels. The first thing I want to say is I would do the destruction with the song TNT from AC/DC.
There you go.
That's the one I was actually thinking of.
There
the
you
most
go.
cliche where it's
Smart.
like TNT.
Yeah, see, we're on the same wavelength.
And you just see it tumble into the ground.
So, and then my first memory of football was, at the 1980-81 NFC Championship game between Dallas and Washington. And, yeah, I was there. And McDonald's that day had 10-cent hamburgers. And I remember we bought like a whole bag of hamburgers to take there. And it was crarazy.
Did you take them into the stadium or you just pummeled them in the parking lot?
No, we pummeled them in the parking lot, and then in the tailgate, and then went in and just that place was just insane. I've never seen anything like it since.
Yeah, I mean it was unique. And look, there is part of it is we're always going to remember things as better than they were. A lot of it is the memories because the team was so great. It goes without saying, but you also can't actually recreate things the same way now. Like, just as an example, I was listening to this podcast recently, and it came up that one of these people who's like a nutrition person was like, there is this philosophy sometimes where you go, oh, well, that's what I ate. They'll be fine. Like, I ate this every morning, or my mom took me to that fast food place too. But what's in those foods now is so different than back then when we were kids. You get what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you mean.
If you just go, well, yeah, but on the way,
I ate Pop-Tarts every morning. I was fine.
On the way home from school, my mom would stop and get us Happy Meals, and so it's okay if I get my kid Happy Meals. I turned out okay or whatever. The point is, well, it's not the same as it was 30 years ago. Everything is prepared and done differently, and there's different things in these foods. And I kind of view it the same way with stadiums. Like, you can't chase the ghost of wanting RFK. We don't build it the same way. Things are done differently. What you're trying to do is you should go to every single stadium and what do I like, and write it down. Put a list together of 3, 5, 7 things if you're Jason Wright and you're Josh Harris and you're Mitch Rails. What do I like? And you know what else Mitch Rails is going to do? I guarantee it. I was listening to an interview he did, a feature-length interview about his business, Danaher. And when he was building his art museum over in Glenstone, that's gorgeous, he went around all over the world to some of the best art museums on the planet, him and his wife, Emily. And they would ask every single person the first question when they sat down. Mitch Rails would ask is, what would you have done differently? And that was his way of figuring out, this is state of the art. This is elite. This is special. This is awesome. What don't they have that they want? And all the way down to like loading dock stuff. And, to me, that's the smartest way to put a list together. And they're going to do that. They're going to build something amazing. But it ain't going to be RFK. That is not walking back through that door. And I think people need to understand that.
Well, because when RFK was built, it was modern then. Right, that municipal bowl stadium for multiple sports. So that's what it's designed for anyway. That's what the modern stadium was. We've now gone in completely different directions for all the different sports. A baseball stadium does not look like a football stadium, which doesn't look like a basketball arena, et cetera. And nor should it, right? The specialization obviously is taken over for good reason. There's more cool stuff. There's more things you can do. The audiences are different. You can call them worse if you want to, but they are. Like, let's deal with the reality, not what we wish it should be. So you're hoping to borrow the vibes, but it's hard to recreate that. I don't want a stadium that's not structurally sound so that the stands move. That was awesome when we would bounce up and down and go crazy, right? All as one. It looked like a sea of burgundy humanity. It was amazing. That's not going to pass code now. You know what I mean? Like, we can't do that.
How about this? We're all in the parking lot. We're in lounge chairs. We're enjoying ourselves. We're passing around some chips and dip. We're having a good time. We're watching the preparation for the demolition. And then you hear this on the speakers.
Oh, sure.
Work for you?
Yeah. Another Saturday, boy.
We all tell our favorite tale of Grandpa Pops taking us to our first game at RFK.
I associate this with the end of Seinfeld, by the way. This is like one of the things they played kind of going out to end that series. Yeah.
I got to be honest. That's a little cliche for Seinfeld.
A little bit.
I don't know. You probably could have done better.
I think it was like one of the clip shows right before the end.
Maybe it became cliche after. Like, they were early enough on the scene. If this wasn't your high school graduation song, then you didn't graduate in the early 2000s. I can tell you that right now. Let's go to Robert, who is in Fairfax on G&D. What's going on, man?
Hey, Grant Daddy, love your show.
Appreciate you, bud.
The stadium talk. I mean, like, with the Wizards Stadium, you knew that we didn't really need that one. You know what I mean? It was like it would have been kind of cool, kind of interesting, but I mean, we already had one. This one is different. I don't care how much it costs. I want Bowser to write a check, give them whatever they want. I want a retractable dome. I want the whole thing. DC needs this stadium. This is existential. COVID has absolutely demolished what it means to live in DC, and it needs something to bring it back. We need to get people from Virginia, Maryland, going back in the city again. And I mean, I don't want to sound alarmist here, but it's like, we need something to kind of get out and change the trajectory of DC and kind of get us going.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, but the Wizards and the Capitals staying in the city, I think actually is more related. An NFL stadium, even if it has a roof on it, which this one will be retractable roof, bet your bottom dollar. Because of the footprint and the size, it's just never going to do the events. Now, if it's indoor, You can absolutely have high school games. You can have some tournaments. You can have some concerts. And they'd be insane not to have some of that. But if you look up some of these stadiums around the country, I would make it smaller, not bigger. More.
Which I think they will, by the way. So to offer a point there,
on that land.
To Jerry's World, I remember looking this up. I think they had like 18 events, and that included Dallas Cowboy home games over the course of a year.
See, that one to me is a bad comp because it's way too
and that's my
massive.
point, is it's so massive. This one could be it wouldn't be unreasonable to close off a certain section. It just wouldn't look bad.
That one's also not urban, which I think hurts it.
Mhm.
Whereas like Allegiant is on the strip.
Yeah.
In Vegas. Allegiant Stadium, you walk out of, I don't remember which one it is, but I watched all the 1:00 games in a sports book at a casino. I walked out, I turned left, I went under an underpass, I was on a bridge, and I'm at the stadium.
That ain't bad, by the way.
A couple hundred yards later.
That's a good afternoon.
That's not a terrible way to watch. At the time, I don't know, were they the footballers still then? Or
football team?
I don't think they were the
Commanders. Like one guy could be a football.
Taylor Heineke was their quarterback.
He was a team.
That helps, Jenny. But I guess my point is, make it smaller. 55,000, 53,000 seats, as opposed to the 90-ish that we were getting to with outdoor stadiums when Dan added all the seats to FedEx. And if you make it smaller, you can actually hold more things. But Wiz and Caps, indoor arena, 20,000 seat venue, that's where your concerts, your stand-up comedy, those types of things are going to be. Very few of those things are going to an NFL stadium. They're just not.
Right.
So the idea of it like saving the city, I think, is probably overstated in terms of its value. I think studies have shown baseball ballparks, because of all the dates, basketball and hockey, because of all the dates, are more helpful. Having said that,
you're putting a bean in the good jar.
Build up everything around it.
Yep.
Now you got winter. Now you got hotels, restaurants, town center type area, bustling business, up and coming. And now it is a big deal to DC. But also, his point is largely correct too, because it's just another reason to go into the city. It's another, I view it almost, I don't know about you, like a pillar. Like whatever happens, where we're 50% down foot traffic in the city from COVID, which is still crazy to think about. Anytime you're ready, you can get back to the offices maybe. But like, I don't know, man. I just think that having the teams here are pillars that hold the city up.
To a degree, yeah. I mean, if not to get too far into this, but if you asked the mayor's office or the Office of Economics, what's more important, people coming to work every day or 80 home dates, they'd probably tell you coming to work every day. But my point is, it's in the column of good. It helps.
That toothpaste ain't coming back in the jar.
Well, totally, and that's the point. So taking more things away, not having them, it exacerbates a problem that already exists. I kind of think the caller's point. But ultimately, though, I can't remember who I heard speak about this. It may have been Josh Harris at one point. I was trying to find it while you were talking. I couldn't. But a thoughtful stadium build wherever it is, so that you don't get every concert, but you get Beyonce. See what I'm saying? Like, you don't get every concert, but you can do Taylor Swift. The bigger ones that are bigger than just seeing, like, I don't know, whatever band that you think is cool at Cap One Arena, you want something a little bit bigger? Well, we've got that venue for you. You could do a couple of more medium-sized events that aren't just football home dates if it's built thoughtfully.
Stuffy McBot, who I think's a human, but who knows?
Okay.
Is in our YouTube chat right now watching the Grant and Danny show stream on video. And he just suggested, if we're all having a party in the parking lot watching RFK go to the ground, he wants to hear this as we are enjoying our snacks and beverages. So look, here comes the boom.
Oh, I see.
I can see it.
Who's this by?
That's a Jared question.
POD. They had one other one, like "We Are the Youth of the Nation," where they would say, we are the youth of the nation," and that was the entire song for 5 minutes. Yeah.
Let's go to Corey in Alexandria on Grant and Danny. Hello, Corey. How are you?
Commander Danny and Mr. Paulson.
Sir.
Yes, a long-time listener. You know me better as Mr. Postman on IG and Twitter. But
all right, there you go.
Yeah, I have fond memories of RFK, so it'll be sad watching it go down. I remember my first game. It was 92 against the Raiders. It was like 3 below zero. Our food froze on us like icicles, but we had a great time. But it needs to come down. It's an eyesore. I drive past it every day. And I do think this would help bring us closer to having the new stadium in the city. Although I do agree with you that it does not mean we're getting it.
No,
but it does bring us closer.
Yes, I mean that is irrefutable. I would say. If this is, we use that football field analogy for the sale. Remember where it's like, what yard line are they at? They're at midfield. They're at the 25. They're in the red zone. They're at the goal line. They were at the goal line for a really, really long time. It felt like, if you remember. But in this way, I think today you got a first down. Like you advanced the football down the field, kind of. But this was a technicality in so many ways. I mean, this was always going to happen. Whether they're getting a football stadium there or not, RFK Stadium was not just going to continue to be there. And I hate saying this because this building means so much to so many people, including you and including me. It is an eyesore, dude.
Yeah.
It is not.
And it's been that way for a long time.
I think it was post-COVID probably the first time it like hit me and really crushed me. When I was driving to a preseason game in the summer, like an August preseason game to see the Washington over at FedEx, and I drove past it. And I'm very rarely over there. I don't know about you, but I only really drive past it if I'm going from here to FedEx. Because normally I'm in Virginia. I just go around the Beltway. But I remember driving past it and going, oh my gosh, what happened to this place? To me, it just looks like a house that someone stopped taking care of. Like if there was an HOA, Danny, someone would need to call the HOA. Dude's not cutting his grass. Cars are on blocks. There's clearly rotting on the siding. This guy's got termites. Like, we got some major issues. The HOA needs to get involved. It was that kind of a vibe. Here's something else someone might want to hear as we're doing some demolition over at RFK Stadium.
It's just one of those days.
Oh my God.
Little break stuff.
What?
Everybody sucks.
Limp Bizkit.
When's the last
Is this
time you heard-
MTV Spring Break?
This is a good throwback there.
Wow.
Attaboy. Michael in St. Mary's, you're on Grant and Danny. How are you?
I'm good, Grant and Danny. Big fan of the show.
Appreciate you, dude.
Hey, so, I have a lot of fond memories of RFK. I'm old enough to have memories of going there as a kid. I got a picture on my fridge of me wearing a Redskins sweater with Snoopy on it for some reason, right there in RFK. But I'm ready for it to go. I think I'm a little over the nostalgia. I've done nothing but for the last 30 years of looking back at the glory days. And I think it's time that we let some of that not go, but we got to get past it. You know what I
think
mean?
this is actually, I don't think it's a huge sentiment, but it is a slightly growing sentiment that maybe we overdo the nostalgia some, which is not to take away from the 3 championships. But you know what it is for me, Danny? It's a parent who hasn't taken anything out of the kid's room when the kid's no longer with them. Where it's like, hey man, it's time to donate the clothes, or what, to say, to use a terrible analogy, but it's like the moving on time is now, right? I think people kind of feel like that. Yes, that was awesome, dude. 1991 was when I was 3. Right. My second kid is about to be older than that. Maybe it's time that we keep it moving a little bit.
Without a doubt. I mean, I remember it didn't look that nice when I was living in the city. One of the easiest ways to get to FedEx, you basically would drive right by it to go kind of points east. And it didn't look good in 04. You know what I mean? And that was 20 years ago. It is needed to not be there. Once the Nationals moved, once DC United moved, it's this empty vessel of what once was. And even if there's no football stadium there, it needs to go. That area would be better if it was just grass. It'd be better if it was a parking lot. It'd be the infinite uses that aren't a useless old building at this point.
Ronnie's in Fredericksburg on Grant and Danny. What's up, Ronnie?
Hey, fellas. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to talk about 2 of my memories from RFK. Danny kind of touched on it a little bit. When you had 40, 50,000 people screaming at the top of their lungs and that stadium would sway from left to right, that was a feeling that you got at no other stadium, baseball, football, basketball, or anywhere around, the country. And I thought that was something special. But my second point was I was able to attend the last game at RFK, and we played the Dallas Cowboys, and we got the win. And The fans stormed the field. We took down goalposts. We ripped seats out of the stadium. Kids were taking the field home with them. It just meant so much to the loyal fans that RFK had given us such great memories.
Yeah, Ronnie, I remember people
Fistfuls
ripping out
of grass.
They were like putting the dirt basically in little tubes, vials, and keeping whatever they could from RFK Stadium. Jeff's in Woodbridge. What's up, Jeff?
Gentlemen, always a pleasure to speak to you.
You as well.
All right. So first of all, I don't go there too often, but maybe every 2-3 months I go by that area. And looking at it, it reminds me of one of those from the movie Independence Day when those big alien spaceships crashed. That's what it looks like to me at this point.
That's funny.
After they got taken down.
Right. They're burning, and I'm a little disappointed that they're not going to do an implosion. Apparently because of environmental concerns, they're not going to do that.
Oh, I've been imagining an implosion. Are they not doing that?
No, my understanding is they're not doing that because of environmental concerns.
Oh, I thought that was the whole point of a demolition, was that you implode it. That's what you do with stadiums. You push a button. The thing is rigged so that it all comes down like a Michael Bay movie.
You don't want it to go out. You don't want somebody walking down the East Capitol Street catching, a piece of stone in the head. You implode. You bring it down.
This isn't the first time they've done this. That's what they should be doing. But in the story, the whole point is they're going to demolish it because they said that environmentally they're able to pull it off. But I guess you can demolish without imploding. Maybe they're going to take the Miley Cyrus wrecking balls to it and bring it down piece by piece.
I don't know.
Takes a little longer that way, I would guess.
One guy with a handsaw, just taking a really long time.
I think it'd be kind of cool to just sit there and let the smart people do their job. They put the dynamite in the right spot, and then slowly but surely, it hit that button and everything falls down just as it's supposed to. Lays on top of the layer below it. Brandon in Kensington, how are you?
What's up, guys?
Hey, buddy.
What's happened? The last caller hit the nail on the head. It's exactly like old, like Independence Day. It's just old and weird looking, and it needs to go. Besides old Skins games, it reminds me of when we were kids back like 90, 91, we would go to see the Dead in concert during the summer. And we would sleep overnight and debauchery and fun. And those Grateful Dead concerts were...
They played there every summer?
I don't know about every summer. I think I went there like maybe 3 times.
No doubt.
Maybe 90, 91. But it was a lot of fun. Good times. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Yeah, I saw some great concerts there, man. U2, HF Festival was there back in the day, I think a couple different times.
Never been to a show. I mean, it was barely hanging on when your boy was in high school. You could do MLS soccer there. It was not nice. It was not great. I remember sitting in the press box for a couple of games for soccer, and then also going and sitting in the crowd. And the lower bowl seats, when they got the new orange ones, were definitely much better. But it was kind of like, okay, this is not great. And then when it was the Nats, you knew that we don't have much here.
We're on shot clock.
A couple of years.
I mean, I remember a bunch of my teammates and I went to go see our other teammate, Mike O'Connor, pitch for the Nationals. And we were like, well, let's get good tickets so he knows we're there. And we were 200 miles away. Like, we could have yelled so loud, passed messages to people that were 100 yards closer. It still would never have gotten to them. It was ridiculous.
Bye-bye, RFK Stadium. The demolition set, it will be happening. And bye-bye to you guys. We are done for the day. And really exhausting and taxing. Heroes work by your guys today, sub 1 hour. The Nats have done it to us again. But we will be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Tomorrow's show, we've got Michigan corner turned Commanders draft pick Mikey Sandristil at 3 o'clock. We'll also be joined by the general manager of the Washington Capitals, Brian McClellan, and new Commanders linebacker drafted in the mid-rounds, Jordan McGee. All going to be on the show tomorrow, right here on The Fan.
Thank you for coming.